When our best fur friends leave our world, many of us are left wanting one last scritch, one last hug, one last walk together. One Last Network is a space for pet guardians to honor their pets in their senior years and to cope with the days leading up to and after their passing. Here's your host, Angela Schneider, founder of One Last Network and Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington.
Hey, welcome back. Our podcast is centered around connecting you, the human, to the support and services you may need as your pet ages and ultimately leaves your physical world. At the heart of those services is professional pet photography. All of the individuals who bring you this content are professional pet photographers. Some have niched down into what is known as end-of-life pet photography, but none of us really like that term since it's so clinical and cold. We prefer rainbow sessions or legacy sessions or even memory sessions. As a professional dog photographer, my niche is adventure, celebrating humans and dogs doing dog things in the great outdoors. Today, I'm chatting with Kylee Doyle of Kylee Doyle Photography in Sacramento, who has found her niche in reactive dogs. Reactive dogs often have an intense fear or aggression toward humans or other dogs, which can make it difficult for them to be in public spaces. That certainly presents its own set of challenges. Kylee has a reactive dog, Omega, a Dutch Shepherd who has heightened sensitivities and can be an emotional handful. In trying to find resources to help Omega, Kylee realized other pet parents with reactive dogs may need someone to work with in a way that makes them feel safe and comfortable. Many may even shy away from having a portrait session done because they don't know how their dog will handle it. But they have a beauty, personality, and spirit that should be documented and celebrated too, in photos that don't scream, reactive dog or aggressive dog. They are loving individual beings who should be a part of your family photos and home decor. But enough of me going on about it. Let's let Kylee tell us about photographing reactive dogs. Good morning, Kylee. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Why don't we get started with having you tell us a little about yourself and Kylee Doyle Photography in Sacramento, California.
Yeah, so I have been running this business for just about 3 years. Actually, it was 3 years, 3 days ago. So that's exciting.
Congratulations.
Thanks. You know, I started the business because I'd always loved photography as a hobby. And I actually did a workshop with a local photographer for posing people, and I just wasn't really feeling it. And we got to the end of the workshop and they brought their dogs in, and I was like, holy cow, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do, you know. And I've always loved animals. Growing up, I think everybody always thought that I would be a veterinarian or, you know, do something with animals. And so it was just like that aha moment of like merging two things that I absolutely loved. And so, you know, I kind of started playing around with my own dogs. At the time, I just had one dog, and then my parents had a dog. And so they became my models, and I just had fun kind of, you know, learning how to photograph pets. And then when we got a puppy, it really took me to that next step of like, okay, I want to be able to provide this service for other people, because it's so great that, you know, in a few years, we'd be able to look back and see those pictures, you know, of Aron as a puppy and compare them to where he was, you know, as he got older. And I really got into the business actually. Initially, I was volunteering for a couple of rescues and photographing their adoptable dogs. And that kind of gave me, you know, the jumping point to start connecting with other people in, you know, the pet industry and pet owners and people that really wanted this service.
What were you doing for a quote real job before you found dog photography, and how easy was it to walk away?
Well, it hasn't been easy. I'm actually still in my real job right now. So I work for a healthcare company, but I'm on the IT side. So that's actually been really nice because it's given me a lot of flexibility. We've actually been working from home for probably about 7 or 8 years now. So well before COVID. So So that's been kind of nice because I kind of set my schedule and I'm home. So on my breaks, I can work on the business and do some other things as I need to. But it's definitely been really hard running both the business and working a full-time job. And definitely my goal is to eventually take the business full-time and leave my current job. But it's definitely been hard because I work for a healthcare company, so I have great health coverage, I have excellent benefits. So it's kind of scary, like thinking about leaving all of that and being out on my own. Certainly my husband has a job and he gets benefits, but it's just not really the same.
Yeah, that's true. I understand that too. Dog photography has to feed a certain level of creativity in you, though. And I'm not saying that IT isn't a creative industry. My mind was open to it being more creative than I originally thought when I met my own husband.
Yeah, I mean, the IT is not terrible. I do a lot more like project management type stuff right now, which to be honest, I don't really love. But I mean, the photography, it's just, I've always been really creative. I think my husband is always like, okay, what crazy thing are you up to now? Because if it's not painting, I'm drawing, or I'm doing origami, or I'm doing something. So I think having this outlet to really focus and to be able to get that creativity in has been really nice.
For sure. How many dogs do you have right now?
So I have 3 dogs. So you can actually see Omega sitting in the dog chair. I have almost always had a chair in my office, and the dogs always end up claiming it. It's like their chair, and they kind of switch off who sits in it. But I have 3 dogs and a cat as well. So I have Anya is our oldest dog. She's a German Shepherd Husky mix. She was kind of my first dog model. And she'll be 9 this year. And then we have Aron, who's a Belgian Malinois, and he's 5. He's the one that we got as a puppy. And then Omega behind me, he's 4. He's a Dutch Shepherd. He's my special dog.
Yeah. Let's talk about that and how Omega has taken your dog photography business in a bit of a different direction.
Yeah. So like I said, Omega's kind of my special dog. He honestly has completely changed our lives. So it's kind of a joke that we rescued him. He actually technically came from a backyard breeder. So kind of a little backstory on him. We got him when he was about 5 months old. And I had seen a post on Facebook for somebody was looking to rehome him. And so we went out to look at him, and we got there, and it was like, holy shit, like this lady's like crazy hoarder. Like we kind of think maybe she was doing drugs, and she was definitely breeding these dogs. We were kind of like, okay, this is not great. And when we went to look at him, she went to pick him up and he peed all over her. He was just terrified. Me being the sucker that I am, I was like, I feel terrible for this dog. But my husband, who's not a sucker, I mean, even he was like, we can't leave this dog here. Like, this is not okay. And so we ended up with him. And he is just so anxious. He's afraid of everything. He's actually on Prozac. Like, it is the poor thing. Surprisingly, he's not afraid of fireworks. The 4th of July was totally fine for him.
Okay, that's
But everything else, my husband slams the cupboard on the other side of the house, and he's like, oh my God, what was that?
Oh no.
And he sees birds flying overhead, and he panics and barks at them. He kind of really directs our life. It's like having a special needs child. We have to make sure that like he's not being left alone for too long, and he takes his meds. And if we're going to take him somewhere, we have to make sure that he's not going somewhere that's going to have too many triggers for him. And we actually have a pet sitter like come into our home when we go on vacation who specializes in reactive dogs. She's come over a whole bunch of times and made sure that he's comfortable. And it's like having a special needs kid. We just have to plan everything around him. And I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, he 100% is my soul dog. He, in addition to being really reactive, he's very sensitive, and he knows. I mean, the second your mood changes, he's right there. If you're upset, if you're angry, I mean, he's right there, like trying to comfort you and trying to figure out like what he can do. to help you. And he's just such a special dog. But in having this reactive dog, like, it made me realize that there aren't a lot of resources out there for people with reactive dogs. There's trainers that specialize dogs like him, but that's about it. We have not been able to find any groomers that are willing to take on a dog like that. We've been lucky to find our pet sitter, but most pet sitters won't deal with dogs like him. We actually ended up going the pet sitter route because when I looked into like boarding facilities, because he's on medication and because he has a bite history, they don't want to take the liability and risk that something's going to happen. And then even for our industry, all of the pet photographers that are in our area, they want to photograph puppies and they want to photograph happy-go-lucky dogs that can be out at a park anywhere. They don't want to be dealing with the dogs that you need to find a special quiet place for them. And so that really kind of led me to start thinking about what resources can I provide my clients and how can I help other people who have reactive dogs, not just with the photography, but in directing them, okay, here's other resources that you can look at. Here's ways that I can help you to kind of manage your reactive dog.
That's pretty incredible. What are some of the signs that people need to watch for when you're working with a reactive dog?
Some of the big things that I usually look out for, it's really a lot of it is in the body language. And I think a lot of people are not really aware. They see a dog and they're like, oh my gosh, I love dogs, and they want to run up to the dog and pet it. My dog, that's a surefire way to create an instant panic attack. He doesn't like people running towards him. He doesn't like people sticking their hands in his faces. Obviously, the first thing is knowing your dog. But if you're going up to a dog you don't know, you want to watch their face and their ears and their body. He is kind of a hard one because I feel like he's taught us a lot about dog body language, because he'll definitely do the cowering if he's really freaked out, but he's pretty subtle with his facial features. It's just a slight twitch of the ears and a slight twitch of the face. But a lot of dogs, it's a little bit more obvious, and they kind of get the hunkered posture and the tail will tuck and the ears go back. And I think a lot of it is people need to learn a little bit more about dog body language and just knowing that dogs are like people and they have boundaries too. And I think that's a hard thing for people sometimes, because it's a dog. And of course, everybody wants to pet a dog and all dogs love people, and they just don't. And I mean, like I said, I have 3 dogs and they're all very different. I have one dog that loves all dogs. She goes to the dog park and she's fine and she wants to play with everybody. And I have one dog that is kind of dog selective. And we're lucky that Aron is very patient with other dogs, but he doesn't really want to play with those dogs. He's like, you can stay in your corner and it's fine. And then we have Omega, who just can't handle anything.
Dog parks are out for you, I would imagine.
Dog parks are out. Yes, I will take Anya to the dog park occasionally, just because my dad loves to take his dogs, and so I'll meet him. And she's fine, but the other 2 don't go to dog parks.
So how do you mitigate some of these reactions when you're conducting a session?
Yeah, so I always, before any session, I do like a planning session with my client and with the dog. So I like to come out to their home, or depending on the dog, we can meet like at a park or somewhere that's neutral. Because for some dogs, the reactivity is people coming into their home. Mm-hmm. And so we always talk. I always have a quick phone call with them prior to anything happening, just to kind of get an idea of what they're looking for in a session and to get a little bit more information about their dog. And then we will plan to have that consultation. And like I said, we'll do it either in their home or we'll do it somewhere that's kind of neutral. That way the dog can meet me. I'm not a complete stranger. Because for a lot of dogs that have reactivity, strangers are a big, stranger danger. That's a real big thing for them. And so I want to make sure that they're comfortable with me. For some dogs, that might be me coming over and meeting them a couple times before the session to make sure that they really are comfortable. And for some dogs, it just the whole time it's me staying out of their space. And I have ways to mitigate that. I have different lenses that I can use. If the dog is really doesn't want me to be near them, I'll use a longer lens so that they can feel safe and comfortable. And I just try to get as much information from the pet parent about the dog's triggers. Does the dog have a bite history? Certainly my dog has a bite history. It doesn't necessarily mean that they can't have a session. It just means that I need that history and I need to know what were the incidents and what caused it so that I can avoid those.
One of these dogs is never going to be off leash.
Yep.
Going to keep your distance, that kind of thing, right?
Yep. Yeah. And when we plan the session, I always offer some different locations for them to choose from. I have a couple of locations that I use regularly that are a little bit more private, have a little bit more space. There's one place in particular that I use a lot that it's like a 350-acre park. If there's another dog in the area, we just go to a different spot in the park, and it works out totally great. Typically, I'll try to schedule those sessions during the week when I know that some of these locations will be a little bit less busy as well.
Are all of these experiences making you a better photographer?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It would be great to photograph dogs all day long that can sit and stay and do everything that I tell them to do. Most of the dogs that I'm photographing aren't that way. They're reactive, and they see my dog, he sees a bird and he starts barking, and these dogs aren't going to sit and stay and look exactly where you want them to. But that's part of the fun. I want these dogs to have a good experience. Like, I don't want the dog to go out and feel like we're forcing it to do something it doesn't want to do. I don't want my pet parents to look back at these photographs and be like, oh my gosh, that was such a stressful day. So really, the photographs that I'm doing for, especially for reactive dogs, they're not typically going to be really posed. They're going to be us capturing candids and photos of the pet parents with their dogs doing the things that they love doing with them. So for me, it's not really important that they can look at the camera or they can do a high five or fancy tricks or sit and stay. I want to capture the dog's personality. And for most of these reactive dogs, their personality doesn't include sitting and staying.
The levels of compassion and patience that you've built by knowing Omega and learning about reactive dogs, how can you bring that into sessions where you're dealing with dogs that are in their senior years or have a diagnosis?
Oh my gosh, those sessions are always really tough. But honestly, like, I think working with these types of dogs, bringing that to end of life sessions, I mean, it's definitely made me a lot more patient, a lot more compassionate, for sure, because these dogs that are reactive, they require that. You can't come into it thinking you're going to just have a quick session and it's all going to be fun and games. Sometimes we kind of have to slow it down and take a step back and just let the dog decompress. Sometimes we need that in the end of life sessions too. If the dog's not feeling well, if the dog can't get around very well, sometimes we just need to take a little extra time and let the dog do what they need to do.
When it comes to how important it is that you provide beautiful imagery of dogs to pet guardians, how do you express to people with reactive dogs that their dog is okay and they will be able to have a successful session?
I mean, just like a dog that's not reactive, I mean, these dogs are part of our families. And I think that it's so important that we capture that and we help them to create and capture these memories of these dogs, because they are important. And I always tell people before the session, if it's just too much for the dog, we can call it. I'm more than happy if it's just really not happening, because some dogs, it just really can't. They just have too much. So I always tell them, if I need to refund the session fee, we will do that. But I've never had to yet. For some dogs, it's really just about figuring out where they're comfortable. Some dogs that are reactive, we're not going to take them out to a park. We're going to do the session in the home because that's where they're comfortable. And for some people, like, those images are even more special because that's where they see the dog all the time. They're not taking them out to the park and to breweries and to other places. They're spending their time with those dogs in their home. And so that's even more special for them.
all of the skills you've developed just by working with your reactive dogs, they translate into every session. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Before this, I didn't have any experience, dog training. I mean, I have been to basic obedience training with my dogs, but that's pretty basic skills. But definitely working with Omega, during COVID, we had a trainer that specializes in reactive dogs with aggressive tendencies come out, and she spent a lot of time, and I was at every session with him, and I learned how to not only train him, but how to help him to manage day to day. And that definitely translates to the sessions, because now I can help pet parents, not just with reactive dogs, but with what we consider normal dogs, help them through the session and help them to direct them to what I need the dog to do. And hopefully they can take some of those skills home as well, because not everybody comes with a perfectly well-trained dog. Even if the dog's not reactive, the dog might not even know basic commands. So it's nice to be able to kind of have that in my back pocket, that, yeah, I'm not a dog trainer, but I do know how to train. And I know how to look for signs that a dog is stressed and signs that a dog is anxious. And because even in just a regular session, we may get to a point where the dog's just stressed out and we need to give them a break or call the session. So it's not really unique to just reactive dogs.
I was listening to a friend's business podcast yesterday, and his guest was talking about how he has different parenting skills for each of his 6 children. And first of all, I was like, 6 children?
Too many kids.
Yikes. How are your communication skills different for each of your children, Anya, Omega, and Aaron?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that has been like a thing in our household, because my husband is, bless his heart, like he doesn't really get sometimes that like they're very different and they have to be treated differently. He had dogs growing up, but it was just every dog should be trained and managed the same way. And so with our dogs, that was kind of a thing early on, that it was like, okay, they're all very different and they all have to be treated differently and they have to be trained differently. And we started off with Anya, and we got her as a rescue when she was about 2. And she's for the most part fine. She's a little bit skittish around men sometimes. And that was like a big thing initially, was that like,
all of us girls are, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. And so I felt like I kind of had to train him that it was like, you have to be a little bit quieter around her, because she freaks out a little bit. And then we got Aaron, and he is a Belgian Malinois, and true to his breed, he needs a little bit of a heavier hand sometimes. Like he needs to be told, like, this is what you're going to do and you're going to do it now. Otherwise, he gets a little like, oh, I'm going to push the boundaries. And that was kind of more what my husband was used to. And so that worked out really fine for him. And then we got Omega, who is a Dutch Shepherd, and his breed is very similar. But because he has all of his anxiety and his reactivity, you have to be very quiet with him. You have to be very cognizant of what you're doing and your movements, how loud you're being. And that was like just a complete shock to my husband. It was like, well, what do you mean I can't treat him the same way that I treat Aaron? And I was like, it's just, he's very different. You have to communicate with him differently. Like, he's very sensitive. If you're loud or you're upset, he catches on to that and he gets a little bit panicky. So it definitely, they all have very different ways that we have to communicate with them and treat them and train them.
I'm very entertained by the way Omega's ears are bouncing while he.
Oh my gosh, he's hilarious. So his ears never went up, and it cracks me up because my husband is always like, "Oh, he looks so dumb," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it kind of fits. Like, he is kind of derpy, and like, I think he would be a totally different dog if his ears were up. Like, his ears are floppy and he's kind of dumb and derpy, and he cracks me up. Oh, he's not doing it now. Sometimes he'll sit there with his tongue out, and it's like this much tongue. It's like just the little end of his tongue sticks out. I know I'm talking about you, huh?
Oh, he knows. He stopped doing whatever it was we were talking about. Like, oh, he's...
Yeah.
You've called Aaron your heart dog, and now Omega is your soul dog. What's the difference?
We got Aaron as a puppy. I just immediately connected with him. And I think part of it was that we got him as a puppy. So we've been with him his whole life, basically. We were there to kind of help shape him and train him and teach him how to be a dog and how to be a dog in our family. And that's been really special. And he is a really special dog. And I feel this like connection with him in my heart. And I know that like when he's gone, like I'm going to be devastated. It's like more than I've ever been devastated over a dog. But when we got Omega, it was a different connection. When I look at him, it's funny because I always joke that it's like, he's so dumb and how could I love a dog that's so broken this much? But it's like I feel him in my soul. Like he gets me and I get him. And I think that's kind of the difference for me is that like I love Aaron to death and he is probably the best dog I've ever had. And I will just be completely crushed when he's gone. It's Omega and I feel like two pieces of a puzzle. And and it's funny because I kind of joke with my husband, we kind of tease him that it's like Omega is really my soulmate. That's for me, that's like the difference is that although I feel a very special connection to Aaron, the connection I feel with Omega, it's more, and it's more in my soul. We just are two pieces that fit together perfectly.
Have you given any thought to the idea that you see yourself in his eyes?
Oh, absolutely.
What broke you?
I don't know. I mean, that's a hard question. You know, and it's tough because it's like, I think about these things sometimes, you know, I had a great childhood. I'm not like, I wasn't the victim of abuse or, you know, anything like that. I mean, certainly there was some difficulty when I was a teenager. My stepdad has not always been the greatest person. He went through a pretty difficult divorce before he married my mom. And I think he experienced a lot of anger following that. And so sometimes it was tough growing up emotionally, having to see like the way that he treated my mom. I like Omega. I'm a pretty sensitive person. And I think sometimes living in the world and having that sensitivity is difficult because I feel everything that everybody feels. And I am definitely very aware of other people's emotions and other people's moods. And that's challenging because you just feel like you have the weight of everybody on your shoulders, whether they want you to or not. It happens. Depending on when my husband and I argue, my first reaction is to cry. And he hates it. He's like, you always make me feel like I'm the bad guy. And I'm like, it's not intentional. It just happens. Like the emotions that I feel are so strong that it's like, my body, I have to have an outlet for it. And I feel that's kind of how Omega is he feels everything so strongly that he just doesn't know how to express it and what to do with all of that.
We're certainly living in a very overwhelming world. So how do you and Aaron and Omega and Anya and your husband escape from it and find comfort in maybe in the work you do or in just being?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I think the pet photography has been a huge escape for me. Personally, I just love dogs and I love being able to work with these animals and being able to capture these memories for people. But I mean, I think as a couple, as a family, we like to just kind of chill with the dogs. I mean, that's like Aaron's favorite thing to do is like snuggle in between us on the bed and just like be dead to the world. So, I mean, that's been nice. And then the house that we're trying to buy right now is on 5 acres. So we really want to kind of have that like homesteading life and kind of be able to not totally go off grid or anything. Like we're not going like full crazy here, but wanting to be able to like separate from the world a little bit. And we plan on like raising some of our own animals for food and growing our own vegetables and just doing some things that kind of allow us to like feel a little bit separate from some of the craziness that's going on.
Will you set up a half acre or an acre as your own natural studio? Because that's my dream.
I know. Oh my gosh. I've thought about it. I don't know that the property that we're getting is really like suited for it. It's kind of like a longer piece. And so we're probably going to have like a couple of cows in the front. But I mean, I probably will use it for my own dogs.
Yeah.
But it's nice because the area that we're going to be in, it kind of puts us like halfway between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. So I kind of figure I'll start, doing a little bit more sessions like out in Tahoe because that's really nice out there.
Oh, I've heard that it's kind of ugly in Tahoe. Am I wrong?
It depends on where you are in Tahoe. Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. It'll be really nice though. And just even the area in between, we've got all the rivers and there's a bunch of other lakes and I'm just really excited for that.
That is so cool. Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to mention, Kylee?
Gosh, I feel like we've probably hit it all. I feel like we've covered the whole spectrum.
In just a half hour, I could get you talking for hours. That's what I do. Thank you so much, Kylee. Okay, so I was just kidding about Tahoe being kind of ugly, right? While I've never been there, it is on my destination list for road trips. I just wish my husband wouldn't cringe every time I say, "Wanna go?" I mean, he'd fly and meet Bella and me there if it was up to him. Spoiler alert, it isn't up to him. Reactive dogs deserve their moment. And they exist on a spectrum, depending on what activates them. Kylee Doyle has an acute understanding of what that means and how to manage your dog and your expectations during a photo shoot. She puts your dog's needs, comfort, and happiness at the top of her priority list. She is also a pet loss grief specialist with One Last Network and prepared to support pet guardians on their last walks with their best fur friends. Next week, I turn the mic over to Kylee, who is interviewing her trainer, Allison Dack, of Dack Pack Dog Training in the greater Sacramento area. I hope you'll come back and have a listen. I'm Angela Schneider, owner of Big White Dog Photography in Spokane, Washington, and your host at One Last Network, signing off to go get some Bella snuggles. Listen to One Last Network on whichever podcast platform you prefer. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. Don't forget to hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you have a friend who might be interested in our content, make sure you share us with them. Thanks for listening.